the counting trends as of now indicate that by and large, the exit polls are right. In a way, the outcome in the 5 states in this election is a remarkable triumph of democracy in the best sense of the term. We all know that we are a poor country, largely illiterate, with very little understanding of how democracy works. And yet, even the poor illiterate voters of India are showing dynamism. They are telling the parties something important. If we miss that message, and if we get lost in the power struggle, who is in, who is out, who is elected, who is not, that will be a tragedy for the country. Take Punjab first, because what's happening in Punjab is quite remarkable. For a reform-oriented party to get elected in Delhi is one thing, because Delhi has high per capita income. Congress party, for a variety of reasons, was decimated. There was no alternative to BJP at that time. And the power of caste and money is relatively less in politics in Delhi. Most of all, AAP was built on the foundations of strong movements against corruption, against violence against women, etc. The cumulative impact of all this and the national goodwill and the desire and yearning for better governance translated into a tremendous movement in Delhi and AAP's victory, which they utilized very skillfully, very maturely, to actually bring about delivery of certain important things. Correctional services, quality healthcare, quality education, and a new language of politics. Certainly, taking care of the poor in the short term, in the form of concessions in electricity and water, helped immensely. In a democracy, that kind of a compromise is necessary. But to win in a rural state, where the incomes actually are falling, Punjab at one time was number one in the country in per capita income. Today, it is somewhere in the middle or lower middle. And where major parties were entrenched for a long time, it's an altogether different story. The triumph of AAP is triumph of the people's hope for better governance and reasonably competent delivery. What it means is when the political conditions are conducive, whenever there is hope for better governance and competent delivery, people are increasingly likely to pitch for that. Uttar Pradesh is the other example. The return to power of BJP is not because of Hindutva or something else. It appears that the people for the first time in Uttar Pradesh understood what delivery could do. The government programs have been delivered with reasonable competence, which is somewhat uncommon for that part of the country. If you take some of the southern states, whatever be the failings of governance and politics, the delivery to the ordinary people, the simple things like whether free power or concessions to farmers or fee reimbursement or Arogyasri or 2 rupees rice or something else, they all have been done pretty competently. For the first time in the northern part of the country, where BJP is in office, they have taken delivery of these services to the ordinary people as an important thing. And that itself is fetching dividends. So again, a realistic hope that there is a competent government and reasonable delivery. That's what really fetched the dividends to BJP in this election. You take the smaller states, Uttarakhand, you can see the same pattern. Uttarakhand, BJP seems to be winning decisively for the second time in succession. Manipur, with their alliance partner, not in election but in government, NPP, they'll form government comfortably. It appears they're close to majority in Goa, with maybe 1 or 2 independent support, they will be able to form the government. Now, all this shows 2 things. One, Indian people are yearning for better governance, better politics. They're sick and tired of politics as usual, sick and tired of caste combinations or religious equations, sick and tired of ethnic diversity in India being used as a tool for political mobilization. They simply want better lives, a future for their children, better incomes, and law and order, and a quality of governance which they can be reasonably proud of. Corruption-free, competent, and forward-looking. Why did other parties fail? You take Samajwadi Party. Samajwadi Party did reasonably well, creditably, in Uttar Pradesh, though they didn't win the victory. That is because Akhilesh Yadav gave a reasonably competent government, which was forward looking, which gave some hope to the people about economic growth and incomes. But the other factors that party was seen to be standing for, a failure to maintain public order, a breakdown of delivery of justice system, and a competition which is offering that much and more, that gave them a difficult option. But elsewhere, the major parties have by and large collapsed. They're not able to offer genuine alternative in terms of a vision. Political invective, abuse of those in power or the opponents, and hoping that if people are tired of them, they'll vote for us, is a thing of the past. If parties do not learn lessons from the past 10, 15 years of our democratic history, reshape themselves, democratize themselves first, give hope to an ordinary member that they can play a role in the party. It's not centered around an individual or a family. And if parties are not able to articulate a vision for the future, an economic vision, a social vision, a vision where people can aspire for a better life for themselves and their children, then they probably have increasingly limited chances in this country. That's the lesson for the major parties, particularly Congress and other parties in the country. Now, BJP, if it somehow believes that there is no alternative to them and they will continue to win no matter what they do, that will be a tragedy for the country. That's wrong politically, but more important, that's wrong nationally. India desperately needs better governance. This country is very poorly served by our successive governments. Our democracy triumphed, but the people's lives are in disarray. Rule of law is simply there on paper in this country. Mere maintenance of law and order is not rule of law. And most law and order maintenance in India is because of our society, its strength, the families, the individuals who restrain themselves, the moderate behavior, not because of the instruments of rule of law. It's not because of the police alone, certainly not because of the law courts or the prosecution. We now have to dramatically improve our rule of law infrastructure, make it efficient, accessible, speedy, independent, non-partisan, effective, treating every citizen as equal. We have done a very poor job of infrastructure, basic amenities as well as infrastructure. One of the reasons why BJP is rewarded repeatedly electorally is, for the first time, right from Vajpayee's time, BJP has been showing significant desire to improve infrastructure and amenities. The water supply, the sewerage, stormwater drainage, our roads, and our power systems. But there are two other areas where we are a spectacular failure. Indian education is a disaster. Our people want good education. Our parents are willing to sacrifice enormous sums disproportionate to their income to give their children a head start. But our outcomes in education are appallingly poor. Out of the 74 countries surveyed a decade ago, at the age of 15, Indian kids ranked 73rd out of 74 countries. Time and again, surveys show us that at the age of 14 to 18, about 40 to 50% of Indian kids do not even know how to read a watch and tell time or count currency. We can cite more and more depressing statistics. It's not because Indian kids lack brains or hard work. It's not because our society does not care for education. Our society deeply cares for education. Parents sacrifice a great deal for their children, and the kids are hardworking. But we simply are not giving them their due. Unless we have a vision to transform this country and give every child an opportunity to get good quality education and therefore fulfill her true potential, irrespective of circumstances of birth, and all this in the next few years, our country would have lost the race in the world and our democracy would have been deeper despair. Healthcare. We have all ingredients in place in this country. First-rate doctors, exceptional skills, a cost and safety which are envy of the rest of the world in terms of medical interventions at the high end, a world-class pharmaceutical and vaccine industry, and tremendous human resource capability. But India ranks one of the poorest and one of the worst in the world in terms of healthcare outcomes. For decades, the governments have been talking about spending more money as a share of GDP on healthcare. They have not found the vision or the wisdom or the will to be able to do that. But more important, they have not designed an effective healthcare delivery system from the primary care to tertiary care across all segments of society, healthcare for all. These are the priorities now. If we do not deliver these, if the state does not fulfill its role, if we get lost in caste or silly arguments about the public sector versus private sector and a whole lot of the debates of the past irrelevant to the future, then India will be swept aside by the forces of history. China, whatever be its faults, has done a remarkable job of delivering services, improving incomes, giving opportunities and hope to a whole generation of people. It's now a world leader. India must aspire to be that and accomplish that, not merely in slogans, but in action. Our government in Punjab has a particular responsibility. What AAP has accomplished is wonderful, remarkable. Any lover of liberty and democracy, irrespective of partisan considerations, must rejoice because we need reform. Our political culture must change. Vote buying must end. People must understand the value of the vote. But if we do not deliver on rule of law, if we do not deliver on local governments, genuine empowerment of local governments so that the people understand the value of the vote and hold the local government to account, if we do not deliver on quality education, not merely spending money and having some showcase buildings and projects, but real outcomes, if we do not deliver on health care, then all this is futile. At the end of the day, the purpose of politics is to make lives better, to enhance freedoms, to give opportunities. Let's hope that AAP in Punjab and BJP in the states where they won now and across the country understand the significance of these electoral verdicts. Let's not take the people for granted. I congratulate the winners in these elections, but there is no winner if India loses. We desperately need to make India win. India right now is just not winning. We have underperformed as a country, but we have the opportunity. We have the resources. We have the technology. We now have the political space in large parts of the country. We should rise to the occasion. And I think the pundits and the commentariat, they must go beyond caste and other calculus, beyond political struggle for power, who is in and who is out, and look at what's happening in terms of outcomes, because real politics is not about who wins the ballot box or in the EVM. Real politics is about what happens after the election, to what extent our freedoms are enhanced, to what extent our people have got opportunity, to what extent has poverty ended with dignity, not with freebies, but with dignity, with incomes, earning capacity, to what extent there is harmony in society. I'm a great optimist. I truly believe that we can seize this moment. There is optimism in the air, and this country can be transformed if we transcend our political divisions and our ethnic diversity and recognize that our children's future is the most important thing. And on that, there's no caste, there's no region, there's no religion, there's no state, there's no language. Most of all, there is no political party. I wish you all the very best.